Hi, my name is Rachel. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to recommend 5 books that I enjoyed that had sapphic relationships in them. These are not all romance forward books. Some of them just have romance as a subplot, or there is a relationship in the story, but it's not like the main point of the story. And I do also have a couple of different genres to recommend as well. They're not going to all be fantasy. I know, shocker. And in honor of the sapphic vibe of this video, I wore my Vi from Arcane Girl Dinner t-shirt. This is my wife. I will fight you for her, and yes, I can fix her. Without further ado, let's get into these recs. The first book I'm going to recommend is You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight by Kaylin Bayron. I read this when I was in a cabin by a canal, and this story takes place at a camp by a lake. So it was very atmospheric for me when I read it. The main idea of this book is that there is this camp, and it is a summer camp that's been converted into this theater experience where people sign up to go to this camp. They stay at the camp for, I think it's just one night. And over the course of this one night, there is a huge theater production where the camp puts on this real life experience of a slasher movie. And the next morning, there's one survivor, and they get like a t-shirt and I think their picture on the Wall of Fame. And I think every summer they have like a couple of sessions, and we're following this main character as she is working at the camp and getting the camp ready for its first like opening weekend, I believe. And there is an already established sapphic relationship when we meet these characters in the beginning. And I think that it's really interesting to have like an already established relationship in like a YA slasher or horror, because I feel like in YA a lot of the times romance or like relationships are used as plot devices, but it was kind of nice to see that it was like already established and the relationship did like have its moments within the story, but it wasn't at all the main focus. And I also think that the way that the relationship itself ends up existing within this thriller slasher, that's hard to say, within this thriller and slasher YA book is definitely very unique. It took me by surprise. The ending of this book as well is not something that I predicted, and I really appreciate the book for some of the weirdness that occurred. If I didn't say, I don't think I did say, but basically during the opening weekend of this camp, a group comes and they start to do their performance, but then people start really dying. And the main character is supposed to be like the final girl, and she's like, I can do it. Like, if anyone can get us out of here, like I can. And she's just really like strong and spunky, but she also does kind of have a softness to her. I thought it was really nice to see how her relationship kind of was a motivation for her during this like crazy ordeal. Obviously, she's trying to protect someone she cares about and protect her coworkers. And I think that this story is really fun and fast. It's also short. I think it's like 210 pages or something. It's very short, very fun. It would be such a good read for September, October. So if you're in the search for a sapphic thriller or like a sapphic slasher, you should definitely check out You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight. The next book I'm going to talk about is a sapphic vampire book, and that is Lucy Undying by Kiersten White. I think this book is a little divisive among the people who have read it, and I completely like understand why. It is the story of what happened to Lucy Westenra, who is Dracula's first victim. She is such a small and minuscule part of his story. And Kiersten White had asked herself, like, what do I even think happened to Lucy? Like, she deserved to be a bigger part of the story. She was the first victim. Like, she should have had a bigger moment. So in Lucy Undying, we are following a couple of POVs. One of them is Iris, who is a human girl. In chapter 1, we find out her mother has died, and she's jet setting off to London to this family property so she can try to find some heirlooms that she can sell for cash. She's trying to make as much money as she possibly can and get the hell out of Dodge as quick as she can, because there is this like mysterious looming presence of her family legacy over her shoulder. And we do learn more about that as the story goes on, but obviously I won't tell you because that's a spoiler. And then another one of the POVs is Lucy in present day, where she's in therapy and she's kind of having this interview format with this therapist. And she's talking about all of the places she's been, all of the things she's gone through in her lifetime, the countless ways over the centuries that men have used her, walked all over her, tried to kill her, the ways that women have been just overlooked and used to further the lives of men over the centuries. And it's definitely a really interesting POV. And personally, I really loved those moments where we are learning about Lucy in the past when she's already a vampire. And then we also follow another POV of diary entries from Lucy when she was like a 14, 15-year-old girl trying to protect her friend from Dracula. And in those diary entries, you learn that Lucy is Sapphic. She's kind of yearning for her friend, and she's jealous of her friend's relationship with Jonathan. And then I can't even remember the other girl's name. I'm not gonna lie. Mina. I think it's Mina. And so she's like in love with Mina, right? And she's trying to protect her from Dracula without seeming jealous, because she is jealous. So she's trying really hard. So it's just really interesting to see this teenage girl in a time where like being Sapphic would absolutely have gotten her ridiculed and ostracized in society. And again, as a teenager, Lucy goes through a lot of misogyny at the hands of men. And it's just so interesting to see how these three timelines come together, like what the point of all of these plots being presented to you is basically. And once everything kind of like comes together and takes off, it's so like unique, I think. I really do think that this story brings is very modern. There is a lot of modern, I can never say this word. There is a lot of modernity in here. Is that even how you say it? There's a lot of modern themes in here, and the world is modern. Iris's timeline takes place in present day. And so like there's a lot of modern things. There's cars, there's pyramid schemes. There's like a beauty empire. There's like socialites and social media specialists and stuff like that. Like it's very modern. But I think the way that you learn about Lucy in the past as she lives through society changing makes it just feel so like realistic, even though obviously she's a vampire. I think that not only is this story a great character study, but it is also just like a fun vampire novel. And then also it's Sapphic, and it is heavy on the theme of like misogyny and like the treatment of women in some places. But it's also kind of heavy on the theme of like generational trauma and like narcissistic parents, and like suffering at the hands of your parents. I will give a trigger warning for like the abuse of a child by a parent, like medically, just so that you're aware if that bothers you. But I loved this. I read it as an ARC last year before it came out, and I was obsessed with it. I read it so quickly. It's like 500 pages. I think I read it in like 3 days. And for me, that is really fast because I'm a slow reader. So don't hate on me, okay? Like I could have probably read it in one sitting if I was a fast reader. But for me, reading something in 3 days is like super quick, okay? So just pretend that was fast. The next book I'm going to recommend still involves vampires, but it is kind of more a sapphic dark academia, and that is A Lesson in Vengeance by S.T. Gibson. Now, this is the author of A Dowry of Blood. And I know that Dowry was like either people were obsessed with it and it's their favorite book ever, or people hated it. I feel like there's no in between. I am one of the people who absolutely loved it. It's not a favorite of all time, but it's like, it's up there. I really enjoyed it for what it was. And I think it's important to note that I don't really consider Dowry like a romance or romantic. Like there is romance under the plot, and it is sort of a focus in some chapters. However, I don't think the book is intending to be a romance. It's actually kind of really sad. It's a very sad look at abuse and control and manipulation and how lonely life can be for like these vampires. Anyways, this isn't about Dowry. This is about A Lesson in Vengeance, which is by the same author, and they are very, very, very loosely, so loosely connected. This book follows two girls, Laura and Carmilla, and they are academic rivals. So Laura comes to this private school and she is a year below Carmilla, and the reason Laura got accepted into this school was for this writing program. And she joins this small contingency. It's like a group of like 6 or 7 girls in this class. And when she joins, the teacher immediately is like comparing her to Carmilla, like pitting Carmilla and Laura against each other, because Carmilla is kind of like the teacher's pet. She's like the creme de la creme, like the best student in the class, and everyone like strives to be as good as her or better than her. And so at first, Laura hates her and then, realizes that the line between love and hate is very thin. And I will also give a trigger warning for this book as well. There is a unfair power balance between a professor and a student. There's also an unhealthy relationship here between a professor and a student in a sexual nature. So be wary of that going into it. But this book is essentially about these 2 girls being academic rivals, and the way that this professor uses their rivalry to her advantage. She pits them against each other. She wants them both to like strive to be like the teacher's pet, and that power imbalance within the teacher and the students. And the teacher just so happens to be acting a little strangely. And then something happens to Carmilla that kind of changes the trajectory of the plot. And if you know the name Carmilla, it is not really at all a Carmilla retelling. It's not set in the same time period. Carmilla is definitely not the same character from the original Carmilla. I think the only inspiration that was taken from Carmilla is that it's Sapphic. Because if you've ever read the original Carmilla, it is so queer. It's very queer coded. And in the original Carmilla, Carmilla has like a really fine appreciation for literature. So I think that them being writers at this private school is kind of like another inspiration from Carmilla. But other than that, I don't really think there are any similarities between the original text, except the namesake, it being Sapphic, and then there's a love for literature involved. But I really liked this one. I think a lot of people didn't like the way that this book ended, which is fair. It does get weird. It gets a little wild. It gets a little out there once we kind of get to the vampire side of this story. But I don't know. I still enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for what it was. I wasn't really expecting much because I didn't want to put it on a pedestal and expect dowry of blood levels of enjoyment. So when I read it, I gave myself 0 expectations. And I think I set myself up for success that way because I enjoyed it way more than I thought I was going to. And I think that the like Easter egg connection at the end of this book also kind of like boosted my enjoyment because I have already read A Dowry of Blood. And like I said, they're very loosely connected. Check the trigger warnings because it's been quite a while since I've read this and I wouldn't want someone to go into it unprepared if they needed a trigger, but it does get really dark. The next book I'm going to recommend is a fantasy. You knew I had to get one of them on here, right? And that book is The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. I really love this book. I know that it's not perfect. I mean, it is a debut and the characters are also really flawed. And I think a lot of people don't like it because of that. But I am a firm believer that flawed characters make the book better. So in this story, the main character that we are following is Lynn, and she is the daughter of an emperor. And she is trying to learn her family's lineage of bone shard magic, where they take human bones or animal bones and they inscribe them with runes in a certain pattern. And those patterns give magic to this bone and they turn into these constructs that are basically just following orders from whoever creates them, right? So she's the main character. And another character we follow is called Jovis, and he's a smuggler. And he is on this personal mission to hunt down his wife. She was kidnapped a couple years ago, and her parents and his parents at this point have just been like, okay, she's dead. She's never coming back. Like, she got kidnapped. Someone killed her. Like, just let it go. And he's convinced that she's still alive. He's like, no, I'm not gonna just let it go. Like, I think she's out there. I'm still searching for her. So he does these smuggling jobs, and throughout all of his traveling, he is still searching for her. And then we also follow another character called Falou. And Falou is in a already established Sapphic relationship with someone called Renami. Falou is the daughter of a governor, and she is adopted. And her girlfriend, Renami, is like a street urchin. She has a place to live. She has a job now. But when she grew up, she was an orphan. She lived on the streets. She was very poor. And she kind of had to claw her way out of that situation for herself. Whereas Renami was adopted very young, I believe. And so she's been living this lavish life of a governor's daughter. And she's kind of lost touch with the reality of like socioeconomic statuses. And I love their relationship because it is very tumultuous. They are not like this super happy couple. They each love each other and care about each other so much, but they grew up differently and their core beliefs, while similar, vary in ways that are like incompatible, and they are constantly working towards, should we still be together? Should we break up? How can I change to please you? You don't have to change to please me. It's this back and forth situation. And I just thought it was so interesting to see a relationship that wasn't like super lovey-dovey and not super happy and not super perfect be already established in a story and get to kind of go on that journey with them. So I thought that was super interesting, which is why I want to recommend it here, because I feel like a lot of the times in fantasy books, in romance books, we follow a person or we follow two people as they meet for the first time and then we watch them fall in love, whereas these people have already fallen in love, but now it's like the reality has kind of set in. They're realizing like maybe they're star-crossed, maybe they're just from two different worlds, and we kind of get to see them grappling with that. And I also think the world itself in this book is super cool. There is a group of floating islands that are all stagnant in their positions relating to each other. So there's like a central island, and then there's, you know, islands scattered around that, and they are all in a specific pattern that stays still. However, the group of islands itself floating, constantly floating, moving throughout this giant ocean, and it is called the Drowning Empire. And I just think it's such a cool concept. So that's kind of where we meet these three characters. That's like the beginning for each of them. And then as they progress through this world, we see how that all connects. But I wanted to recommend this one because, like You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight, it is another book with an already established sapphic relationship, which I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I have another one to recommend that also had an already established sapphic relationship. So maybe I don't like seeing people fall in love. Maybe I just like seeing them when they're already dating. Clearly there's a pattern here. And the last book I'm going to recommend today is A Master of Jinn by P. Jelly Clark. And this book follows a woman named Agent Fatma, and she works for this like supernatural investigations office, and they are in 1930s Cairo, I believe, and it's very steampunky. There are these automatons, there's cool clockwork devices like weapons and inventions, and at the start of this book we follow her as she's trying to solve a mass murder, and we actually get to see the mass murder take place in the prologue, which is kind of crazy. But the first chapter, when these people all get murdered, they are this secret society that is hunting down lost artifacts that have clues or relations to this person called Al-Jahiz. And supposedly Al-Jahiz himself shows up to this meeting and is like, I am Al-Jahiz, fear me, blah, 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 and then he kills them all. And that's the prologue, basically. And then Agent Fatma is like asked to solve this murder because she's part of this investigations team. She is such a smart character. She is stubborn and she isolates herself. She doesn't like to work with a partner. She doesn't really trust people very easily. And I think that's like a big flaw she has, is not being able to trust people. And so we follow her as she is trying to solve this mass murder, but she has to let herself be vulnerable and trust people that she's not really sure if she can trust. And one of those people is a woman who she kind of has like this on again, off again fling with. It's already established that they're like into each other, but they're not like officially dating. And I think that was also an interesting aspect to kind of have in a story where the romance itself is not at all integral to the plot, but the character, her and Agent Fatma end up working together. But while they're working together, like you can kind of see like, oh my God, like, are they flirting? Or like they're alluding to this like history between them. And so you kind of learn about that as well, even though it's not at all integral to the plot. And it is a very like minor subplot that takes place in the story. It was one of my favorite parts because I just really liked them together. And I also think that this book is really unique in the way that it presents Agent Fatma, because she does have a minor disability. She walks with a cane. I think she has some injury that's like very chronic, and so she is a cane user. And I love the way that this story shows that that doesn't stop her. She is still so capable. She can do a lot of things by herself. She refuses to work with a partner. She's like very capable, very strong, very independent. Like, I just absolutely love that. Yes, that's a small piece of her, but it literally like doesn't take away from her job, and she's still like a strong person and like works around it and like is fine. Like, she's lived that way long enough that it's not a hindrance to her. Like, she's so capable to do things on her own, and she doesn't ever really need help. But I like that a theme of this story is that she needs to sort of accept help in this investigation. There are certain things that she doesn't know and certain things that she can't find out on her own. So the only things that she needs help for in her job aren't physical. So I really liked that aspect of her as well. I've heard that a few people complain about this book because they don't think that the way P. Djeli Clark wrote women was like a good representation. And I personally don't understand that complaint. There is a good mixture of female and male characters in this story. There are humanoids, there are mythical creatures, there's like jinn, there are some other creatures that I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's like a good mixture of men and women. It's pretty even, I would say. It's not really skewed one way or the other towards like a majority. But I think that the women were all different from each other. Like, they all had their own personalities. They all had strengths. They all had weaknesses. Same thing with the men. Like, the men all had strengths. The men all had weaknesses. I don't know where that complaint comes from. So if there's like a specific scene or a specific line that you know of that would show me otherwise, I would love to see it, because I just genuinely don't remember seeing or reading anything like that in this book when I was reading it. I did also listen to the audiobook, so I don't know if the narrator like changed the tone of some of these women, but I mean, I think she narrated it. Oh my God, that's hard to say. I think her narration was fantastic to listen to. She really gave every voice a distinct personality and brought the story to life. So I would love to be corrected if I am wrong, but I just want to point it out. If you've heard that from other people and you're hesitant to pick this one up because of that, I didn't see any of that in here. So if you have heard that from other people and you're hesitant to pick it up, just take it with a grain of salt maybe. Or, you know, if you are interested but hesitant, you could always just pick it up for yourself and find out. And then you can tell me if I'm wrong, because if I am wrong, please, like, I would love to know. But I just don't see, I read it recently too. I read it within the last 6 months, I think. So it's kind of fresh in my mind, and I really don't see where the representation of women was bad in here. And I do have to question, like, is that because he's a black man? Are people being way too harsh on him because he's a black man? Because if a white man wrote this, would they be complaining? If a white woman wrote this, would they be complaining? I don't know. I don't think so. Just some food for thought on that one. But I really loved Agent Fatma in this story. And I loved that the romance wasn't a major focus, but it was just kind of this added flavor that we got snippets of here and there between Agent Fatma and her love interest, whose name is escaping me at the moment. And that's not the book's fault. I just have a bad memory. So those are the 5 Sapphic book recs that I have for you today. Have you read any of these? Have you enjoyed them? Are you interested in picking any of them up after I've chatted to you about it? I would love to know in the comments down below if you've read any of these, or if I've changed your mind one way or the other about picking them up after. And of course, thank you for watching. If you've made it this far in the video, leave the 2 girls kissing emoji down in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!